Poetic Reflections on Bhagavan Sri Ramana's Teachings
by Sri Robert Butler.
சாதகத்திலே என்ன சாத்தியம் உஷாவினால் நாதனை பற்றா நினைவெல்லாம் சாதலாம் நாதனை பற்றா நினைவெல்லாம் சாதலாம் வெற்றெண்ணம் வந்தால் ஆர்க்கு என்றே உஷாவலாம் மற்றதுவே மந்திரமாகாது நாதனை பற்றா நினைவெல்லாம் சாதலாம் வெற்றெண்ணம் வந்தால் ஆர்க்கென்றே உஷாவலாம் மற்றதுவே மந்திரமாகாது.
If you should ask, what is the aim of this spiritual task? It is none other than the death of all thoughts, other than that of our Lord. Should vain thoughts materialize, then ask, to whom do these arise? But know that this is no mantra by you to be chanted.
So, Robert, could you please tell us what was the inspiration behind your composition of this verse?
Yes, well, first of all, I wanted to find something that was actually spoken this day 55 years ago on the day that we're celebrating Bhagavan's Aradhana. And when I looked in day by day, I came across this particular conversation, and it goes as follows. Sadhu, am I to keep on repeating who am I so as to make a mantra of it? Bhagavan, no, who am I is not a mantra. It means that you must find out wherein you arise the I thought, which is the source of all other thoughts. And then I found another conversation in Day by Day with Bhagavan on the 21st of the 11th, 46, which corroborates the same idea. Bhagavan, why should you go on repeating who am I as if it is a mantra? If other thoughts arise, then the question is, to whom do these thoughts arise? Whence does the I to which these thoughts come arise have to be asked, i.e. to keep away other thoughts? The object in all paths is to keep off all other thoughts except the thought of God or self.
Thank you. Now let's go to the next verse you composed.
நானாரென்றுள்ளாள் நெறியே விசாரமாம் தான் நான் என்று உள்ளல் தயா நெறியாம் நான் ஆரென்றுள்ளாள் நெறியே விசாரமாம் தான் நான் என்று உள்ளல் தயா நெறியாம் நானா உபாதி தேர் சித் சுகவோர் உததி தன்னில் உபயம் ஒழிந்தோயுமே நான் ஆரென்றுள்ளாள் நெறியே விசாரமாம் தான் நான் என்றுள்ளல் தயா நெறியாம் நானா உபாதிதேர் சிற்சுகவோர் உததி தன்னில் சிற்சுகவோர் உததி தன்னில் உபயம் ஒழிந்தோயுமே உபயம் ஒழிந்தோயுமே.
To sink within, asking, who am I? Of self-inquiry is the path. To think with love, I am He, is the path to gain His grace at last. But in the self-bliss consciousness's single sea, of manifold distinctions ever free, both paths will fade and no more be.
So, Robert, could you please tell us your inspiration behind the composition of this verse?
Yes, the inspiration, this is from Talk to Sri Ramana Maharshi, Talk 274, on the 27th of October 1936. Devotee, does not bhakti imply duality? Maharishi. Svasarupa anusandanam bhaktiriti abhidyate. Reflection on one's own self is called bhakti. Bhakti and self-inquiry are one and the same. The self of the Advaitins is the God of the Bhaktas. Day by Day with Bhagavan, 22nd of the 11th, 1945 afternoon. Bhagavan said, all talk of surrender is like pinching jaggery from the jaggery image of Lord Ganesha and offering it as naivedya to the same Lord Ganesha. You say you offer your body, soul, and all possessions to God. Were they yours that you could offer them? At best, you could only say, I falsely imagined till now that all these which are yours, i.e. God's, were mine. Now I realize they are yours. I shall no more act as if they are mine. And this knowledge that there is nothing but God or self, that I and mine don't exist, and that only the self exists, is jnana, he added. Thus there is no difference between bhakti and jnana. Bhakti is jnana, jnana mata, or mother of jnana.
Thank you, Robert.
பொய்யான நான் துறந்தால் போதுமாம் பொய்யான நான் துறந்தால் போதுமாம் ஓர் முயற்சி செய்யாமல் தானாய் பின் தோன்றிடும் மேதானே உன்னையும் தன்னையும் வேறாக்காது உன்னையும் தன்னையும் வேறாக்காது அன்னவனை உன்னி அவனுள் முற்றும் மூழ்கு உன்னையும் தன்னையும் வேறாக்காது அன்னவனை உன்னி அவனுள் முற்றும் மூழ்கு அவனுள் முற்றும் மூழ்கு.
Be enough if you abandon the unreal I. The true self will you then effortlessly descry, seeing no difference between yourself and him. Dwell on such a one, and in him sink.
So, Robert, what inspired you to compose this verse?
This was inspired by a quote from Conscious Immortality, which is a book of talks with Ramana, not as well known as talks, but it contains some of the same material, but one which I particularly like as a vehicle for Bhagavan's teachings. It's from page 88, last paragraph. Question: I want to find the real I and always be effortlessly in touch. Answer: it is enough that you give up the individual I, and no effort will be needed to gain the real I. Do not think that there is any such difference between you and the self. Then surrender yourself to him. There should be no reservations, as you cannot cheat God.
வாரணமும் பூமலர் வைகுகிற அன்னமும் ஆயாரத் துதிக்க ஒளிப்பிளம்பாய் ஆர்ந்தோய்த்திட உடலம் என்னையோ தற்காலம் மாலக்கிடப்பது ஈது உன் விளையாட்டோ. Praised by the boar and lotus-seated swan, so powerful as a column of fire you shone. Why lies that sturdy body now, caught in death's throes? Is this some game of yours we all should know?
Thank you, Robert. I think these are great contributions to the Ramana literature.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Thank you.
This is from a book entitled Bhagavan, the Friend of All, published by the ashram in 2008, although the author is not named in it. From the second chapter entitled Bhagavan and the Animal Devotees. Answer to the question, how do we recognize a jnani? Bhagavan replied, a jnani is one who has a balanced and tranquil mind in all circumstances, one who has an attitude of equality towards and love and compassion for all beings, whether they are plants, animals, birds, insects, or human beings. Devotees and visitors to Ramanashram certainly found these qualities in Bhagavan, and not only human beings, but all animals and living creatures. Lakshmi the cow, Jackie the dog, Vali the deer, and the blessed crow were all liberated by Bhagavan in his lifetime, and they were all buried in their own samadhis inside the ashram. Bhagavan even wrote a Tamil poem over Lakshmi's samadhi to say that she had attained liberation. It is generally believed in Hinduism that in order to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, one must acquire a human birth. But Bhagavan was clear that a fully ripened soul could take the body of an animal, a plant, a bird, or any other creature to exhaust his or her remaining karma. Bhagavan had equal regard and consideration for all beings whose destiny brought them into contact with him. His vision was universal. He treated animals, birds, and other creatures with the same love and compassion that he had for human beings. And they all had the same love and devotion towards him. They were attracted to him in the same way that human beings were. He would not allow anyone to hurt them in any way, and even upbraided devotees for plucking flowers or for beating the branches of trees for their fruit. Before moving to the hill of Arunachala, Bhagavan lived for 18 months in the small temple of Gurumurtam, not far from the foot of the hill. Squirrels and birds were already drawn to him by this time. Birds built their nests near him at a time when he was oblivious to the world around him, at a time when he had sat still and silent, almost like a statue, although he was always keenly aware of all that happened around him. He had a deep love for everything in nature. In later years, when he moved to Sri Ramanashram, Bhagavan recalled how a bird had built a nest in the mud next to where he sat in Gurumurtam. It had laid its eggs in the nest and hatched them, and when the fledglings grew, they flew away with the mother bird. And then later, a squirrel occupied the same nest. He also remembered the life cycle of hornets, which he had keenly observed. And he later used this observation to explain certain Vedantic concepts. When Bhagavan moved up onto the hill, Palaniswami became his companion, as well as his devotee and attendant. Other devotees and visitors began to be drawn to him. The divine power in him attracted not only human devotees, but also animals and birds, just as a magnet attracts iron. When he was in Virupaksha cave, all kinds of birds and beasts visited him. Squirrels, parrots, and sparrows perched on nearby trees and tried to converse with him in their own languages. Monkeys came in groups to congregate near Virupaksha cave. Peacocks spread their feathers in fans and danced before him. Dogs lazed in the sun near him. Wild animals came to a spring near the cave, announcing their arrival and departure with roars that he could only understand the meaning of. Not only did animals such as birds and dogs come to visit him, but also snakes, scorpions, lizards, and spiders. He understood their languages, gestures, and emotions. He was omniscient, the all-knower, and all these creatures in turn understood his language, his gestures and glances, and obeyed him accordingly, which was how a unique companionship developed between him and the animals. This was not an ordinary relationship. There was divinity in it. The animals knew that Bhagavan was their friend and benefactor. They were not afraid of him. Just as he was fearless in their presence, so were they in his. They knew that he loved and cared for them. Suri Nagama, the author of Letters from Sri Ramanashram, once told how even animals lost body consciousness in his presence. Once, in the hall in the ashram, a lady was playing the veena and singing very beautifully. The devotees were completely immersed in the music, at which point Suri Nagama witnessed a uniquely wonderful sight. The cow Lakshmi was completely stretched out in front of Bhagavan in a state of absorption. Madhava, the white peacock, had spread his feathers into a fan and was dancing with joy, while the ashram dog was lying motionless. It was a scene out of ancient days in a rishi ashram. Surinagama felt she was exceptionally privileged to have witnessed such a scene. Bhagavan never addressed or referred to animals as it, as most people did. He always referred to them as he or she, and never treated them as inferior to human beings. He said, although living beings are of different shapes, sizes, and colors outwardly, they are all simply the expressions of the supreme intelligence, which is one without a second and is never divided. That is, they are all one and the same without difference. They are all the all-pervading Brahman. When Bhagavan asked, "Have the boys been fed?" a new visitor might have thought he was inquiring about the human boys in the ashram, but he was actually referring to the ashram dogs who had come to have their meal. Or he would say, "Lakshmi has come, give her some idlis." But it wouldn't be a young girl he was talking about, but the ashram cow, Lakshmi, who would come and stand in front of him. Or if Bhagavan said, "She has come with her baby, give her some fruit," it would be when a mother monkey, holding her little one to her bosom, would be standing at the window near Bhagavan's couch, looking at him with all her love and devotion. Or he might say, "Kamala, take this newcomer devotee for Giri Pradakshina." And the newcomer would be expecting a girl as a guide, but she would turn out to be Kamala the dog, who would take him all round the hill, stopping at all the places of interest before bringing him back to the ashram. From the beginning, when the ashram was started, to the present day, the sadhus who arrive as mendicants are fed first, then the animals and birds, and finally the devotees and visitors inside the dining hall. Whatever food there is equally distributed among all and shared by all alike. There were no superior or inferior beings, whether they were animals or humans, and they all received their equal share. Arthur Osborne wrote that he was once surprised to see Bhagavan tasting a mango between meals. The mango season had just started, and it turned out that he had tasted it to see if the fruit was sweet enough before giving it to the white peacock. Pascaline Mallet, a French lady who came to the ashram in 1936, wrote in her book, Turn Eastward, Glimpses into Indian Life, how Bhagavan had regarded and behaved towards all animals equally. She said, "In the Maharshi's eyes, all are equal. Moreover, this is not limited to human beings, but includes all the animal kingdom as well. There are many beautiful and touching stories testifying to his love and compassion for our younger brothers and sisters. In his presence, wild animals do not fight or kill each other and do no harm to man. A cobra used to come into the hall without ever attacking anyone, and even stayed peacefully beside its most bitter enemy, a peacock, who was another inmate of the ashram. The Maharshi forbids all ill treatment or killing of any kind of living thing, and all unconsciously feel that they are perfectly safe. The little black striped squirrels run in and out, birds build their nests in the rafters, and monkeys occasionally peep in to steal some food. When an animal inmate of the ashram is about to die, Maharshi will attend to it in the same way that he does to a human being, sitting beside it to the end with a hand on its head. He sees the same life in all, although he does recognize differences in outer form. His vision of equality is based on the realization of the one behind the many. Animals had complete faith in Bhagavan. They felt his grace. Wild animals, birds and monkeys, would bring their young ones and leave them in his care. Usually, if human beings caressed a wild animal, its own kin would avoid it on its return to them. But if they were touched by Bhagavan and returned to their kin, they did not avoid them, but rather they seemed to honor them. They felt that Bhagavan had blessed them. Animals knew that Bhagavan loved them, as he was always calm and poised. There was never any room for anger. They did not fear him or feel threatened by him. They thought of him as one of them. They identified themselves with him. On his last day, before Bhagavan left his physical body, the doctors said that the pain caused by his sarcoma must have been terrible. But he was so concerned about the animals that when 2 peacocks screeched in a nearby tree, he asked whether they had received their food. The pathetic cry of the white peacock sitting on the roof of the room where he was lying would have melted anyone's heart. To the peacocks, dogs, squirrels, cows, birds, monkeys, and all other animals, including wild animals, he was a teacher, a father, a friend, a relative, a well-wisher, and everything on earth. Sri Morarji Desai, the then Prime Minister of India, who was presiding over the 99th Jayanti celebrations of Bhagavan at Sri Ramana Kendra in New Delhi on the 13th of January 1979, said, "The Maharshi seemed to know everything. He knew the language of all animals. He listened to their complaints. He treated every being with love, whether it was a cat, a dog, a cow, a crow, or a monkey. They were all equal in his eyes, whether they were beggars or millionaires. He never left Tiruvannamalai. He refused to go out or to preach. He said, 'If I am a jnani, I consider everyone else to be a jnani as well. What is there to teach?' He regarded every being as himself." Sri Morarji had actually visited Bhagavan and sat in front of him in 1935, and he had left with an abiding impression of Bhagavan. The devotees and distinguished visitors who came to seek Bhagavan's blessings were dumbfounded by his universal vision of equality. They exclaimed in wonder that they had never seen anything like this before anywhere. We are fortunate indeed to have Bhagavan as our inner guru and to be blessed by him.
Purusham శ్రీ అరుణాచల పంచరత్నం కరుణాపూర్ణ సుధాబ్దే కదలిత జన విశ్వరూప కిరణావల్య అరుణాచల పరమాత్మ అరుణో భవ చిత్తగంజ సువికాసాయ அருள் நிறைவானம் கடலே திரிகதிரால் யாவும் விளங்கும் அருண சித்திரமாம் இதெல்லாம் கண்மலையே நின்றாலே புத்திரமானின்றே ஒடுங்கிடுமாள் நித்தியம் நானின் இதயம் நடித்திடுவையாலும்பே ஆனிதயமின்றிடுவதாம் அகமிதி குதாயாதியே தென்விஷாம் தவிட்டயாத்தியமலதியா அவகம்யஸ்வம் ரூபம் சாம்யத்தருணாச்சலத்வைனதீவாதோ அகமுகமாரந்தவமலமதிதன்னால் அகமிது தானின்கள் மென்றாய்ந்தே அகவுருவை நன்கறிந்து முன்னே நதி போலும் ஓயுமே உங்கனருணாச்சலனேயோ தத்வா விஷயம் பாஹ்யம் ருத்த பிராணேன ருத்த மனசாந்தஸ்தாம் ஜாயம் பஸ்தடி யோகி நீதிமருணாச்சலத்வைமகீயந்தே வெளிவிடயம் விட்டு விளங்கும் அருணேதா வழியடக்க நிற்கும் மனத்தால் உளமதனில் உன்னை தியானித்து யோகி ஒளி காணும் உன்னில் உயர்வுரு நீரும் எத்தை அப்பிர மனசாத்வாம் பஷ்யம் சர்வம் தவாஸ்திரிதயா சததம் பஜதே அனன்ய பிரீத்யா சஜயத்தருணாச்சலத்வயுசுகே மக்னः உன்னிடத்தில் ஒப்புவித்த உள்ளத்தால் எப்பொழுதும் உன்னை கண்டெல்லாம் முன்னுருவாய் அந்நியமில் அன்பு செய்யும் அன்னோன் அருணாச்சலாவிலும் என்புருவாம் நீலாண்டே ஸ்ரீமத் ரமண மகர்ஷே தத்தனமருணாச்சலஸ்ய தேவகிரா பஞ்சகமார்யாகீதோ ரத்னம் சிதமோபனிஷதம் அருணகிரி ரமணம் ஆரியத்தில் கண்ட அருமறை கருத்தேயாகும் அருணாச்சல பஞ்சகமணியை கண்டமிழந்தாவா உலகிட்டளித்தாங்குமங்கே அறியாதே தர ஜீவரதகவாரி ஜகுகையில் அறிவாய் ரமி பரமாத்துமன் அருணாச்சல ரமணன் அறிவாய் உளம் ஒரு காணல பரநாம்பிகை குகையாம்பே அறிவாம்பே திரவாணியம் அறிவாயது வெளியாம் வாழ்க வானருணாச்சல வந்தைய வாழ்க வந்தையர் வாய்துதி பஞ்சகம் வாழ்கவாய் மலர் மாரமணம் பதம் வாழ்கவ பதமன்னே வாழி ஸ்ரீரமண ஜோதி வள்ளலே வாழி 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 நீ காலம் உந்தின் மறையறை கடந்தோய் வாழி வாழி நீ புவன கோடி வடிவெல்லாம் நிறைந்தோர் வாழி வாழி நீ ஊழி வெள்ளம் அரித்திடா வந்தம் வாழி வாழி ஸ்ரீரமண ஞான வாரிதி வாழி 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 ஸ்ரீரமண நாம மந்திரம் வாழி 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 ஸ்ரீரமண மூர்த்தி வாழி என்பா நீடூழி வாழி நீ அம்மை காக்கும்